Welcome to Confessions of a PT. I'm James McCallion from James McCallion Transformations.
And I'm Matt Cowell from Mind and Movement Mentoring. And between us, we've got over 25 years of coaching and personal training experience.
And every single week, we're going to provide you with all our best tips and laughs along the way.
Welcome to Confessions of a PT. This week, we're going to be talking about a stat that I recently heard, which is 90% of PTs fail within their first year, as well as some other good stuff. So, how are you doing, mate?
Really good, mate. Little man has not been sleeping this week, so a little bit sleep deprived, but no excuses. Still on the gain train. How are you?
I'm all right, mate. Yeah, eating a little bit better. Went through a little bit of off the rails, but have restabilised the blood sugar, so mood on point, feeling good.
Back on it. So I'll go straight in with this one. I feel like the reason there is such a high turnover, I think number one is people's perception of a PT is that it's this glorious job where you get to pick your own hours, very well paid and stuff like that. I think on the flip side, what PTs don't realise is that the hours are very unsociable. Early mornings, very late finishes, lunch breaks, depending if you're busy and that, you get like 5 breaks a day, which for most does sound good, but you cannot do anything around that and you've constantly got to be available. The second one, which is the biggest thing, is that you can get your PT qualification. I'm going to steal this off you off the back of a Kellogg's box now. And I actually know gyms in our local area where instructors have got these qualifications in 48 hours and then are allowed to go on the gym floor.
Stop it, 48 hours.
It's
no,
disgusting,
surely
I
not.
swear. And
Stop it.
on my actual PT course, when I did it, I mean, I went to university and then did a 6-week course after to become a PT. But my partner in the lesson was she had no gym experience. She was qualified in 6 weeks and she didn't know what a quadricep was. She didn't. It was so basic. And actually, on the last day of our exams, she'd failed her module 3 times in a row and was still allowed to do it on the 4th day. So our session was at 8 a.m. and by the time it got to 4 p.m. we were still there because she failed what drop set was 3 times in a row. But then after she got it right the 4th time, she was qualified. So it's just disgusting. And there's a big difference, and I cannot preach this enough, between you enjoying training yourself and training other people. They are not identical.
I can tell you're very passionate about this. 1, because of the tone of your voice, and 2, because you missed an opportunity for a leg day joke when you said about the quadricep.
Damn it! We live in a world where...
Yeah, I thought you were going to accuse me for not knowing what one of them was. I think you're so right. There's a big difference between enjoying training yourself and training other people. I think it's easy to think, it'd be nice to be in a gym all day rather than in a corporate environment or a quote unquote 9-to-5 office job, or if you're at the age of choosing your career path, and forget about what goes into running a business when you're self-employed, marketing, sourcing clients, retaining clients, what a client's journey looks like. You just think it's easy to think, I'm sure some people do, that my enthusiasm for exercise is just going to rub off and that will be enough. And the stats clearly show that it's not. And like you said, there's such a low barrier for entry, which is very worrying because it's a competitive marketplace. The gym certification bodies don't care about you. They don't care if you go on to thrive with a business. They just want your numbers, hit their targets. They want to be able to say that we qualified 97% of people or whatever as a headline stat that enrolled with us. And then that makes them look good and, keeps the funnel going for them. And they don't care how many of them actually went on to be good at what they did, impacted people's lives, profitable, sustainable. And like you say, the open book nature of some of the assessment means that you can kind of dawdle through an exam without really... My only thing I would say about that is it was years and years and years ago I did mine now, but it was like going back to school, which I found challenging. And when I had to learn about anatomy and things like that, and actually my focus, ADHD, is terrible. So it was hard to kind of, for things I knew I was never going to use or not use that much about like ventricles and arteries and things like that. And it was hard to kind of like go brain in gear, like, because it's like, can't imagine this being particularly transferable. But you've either got to be able to switch on enough to get through the qualification, and there should be a bit more of a, of a rigid structure with that, I think.
Yeah. Just to what you touched on, the course that I did, which is what made me buy into it, was 99% success rate, and it was a guaranteed job at a leisure centre after. And I was thinking, oh my god, in 6 weeks' time, I'm like guaranteed to pass, and I've got a job.
I'm strutting around the gym floor.
Yeah, and I think what they didn't say, and this is a big thing that I realised, I don't know if other PTs have experienced this as well, is that when I qualified, it was straight into paying rent, and as a self-employed PT, didn't have a client base, and like you said, I had to go in, source clients and then retain them, and my rent was £500 plus a month, and I was like, I'm 19 years old, I've never worked with anyone, I was terrified. Or at other leisure centres, I was getting paid minimum wage, and half my day would be cleaning treadmills and hoovering floors, and I was like, what? And it was such a different thing. I was thinking it was this highlight reel where I'm going to be charging £40-50 an hour, clients coming out my ears, but you never got taught, and it is a business. You got taught as a PT how to coach, how to train and stuff like that. To be fair, the 6-week course I did, looking back at it now, was a joke. And I think this is where people qualify. They think they know everything. Like, the industry is evolving left, right and centre, and you need to keep up with the times, and experience is everything. And this brings me on to my next point about how frequent there is now online coaches. And they haven't even been through that gym floor experience. I mean, I think it was 10 years, 11 years before I went into the realm of online coaching, and that's priceless. You can't teach that over that experience of working with your average Joe and your rock star clients and stuff like that. And you some clients you will genuinely hate, and they are so draining. Other ones, but you come across, whether it's imbalances and stuff like that, stuff that is priceless in my opinion. And you feel like, online coaching, you see everyone's financial gain from it, but for me, from a retention point of view, and again, it's touched on, like, you can look amazing, but you can have no idea how to be a coach or relatable. And if you're jumping ship, that you need to earn the steps and do the stepping stones in order to get there.
Yeah, you need that 10,000 hours to mastery, like they say.
Massively.
You can't cheat the experience. Mine was a decade as well of face-to-face coaching before doing anything online. And yeah, I think it's just massive, like, kind of what that gives you. And I think as well, my view on kind of what a good, like, coach is has changed over the years. And I think it's very, very easy to think nuts and bolts fitness, when really what you need is people skills, rapport, so people trust you and get on side and believe, like, conviction in what you say, empathy with the clients and being able to understand their circumstance and that kind of thing, figure out what motivates people and that kind of thing. And there's a real kind of coaching aspect that never gets taught on any of the certifications at all. There's two glaring massive misses. One is that coaching aspect of how to coach people. You can show people how to turn on a Concept 2 rower and that kind of thing, and and do a lunge and not hurt themselves. But there's that, and then there's actually, like, you don't just want a robot, you want someone that's evolving you through a journey, taking you, working on your weaknesses, sussing things out that you don't know, giving you not what you think you want, what you need, and then what you want, and that kind of thing. And that's really, really important. I think that and the business side of how to sustain yourself is not spoken about. How to market yourself, how to speak to people through messaging, that's ignored. It's just, let's get you to X standard that we agree is the benchmark for a trainer, and then off you go. Yeah. And then people are seduced by that because it seems like a cool job up front, and that's at 90%. I mean, I wouldn't have said it was that big. I would have said way over 50, but 90 shocked me.
Yeah, I worked in a leisure centre for 6 years, and I was the last person standing. From when I started, there was 7 of us, and I would say every year at least half would drop off and come in 6-month periods and stuff like that, for multiple reasons and stuff like that. But I think what you touched on is key. With the first initial, what we got taught as a PT was, this is how the program is, and I paid so much attention to glorifying the program. Like, you're in a gym 4 times a week, supersets, circuits, like, it was everything to me. And when I made the transition to going on to online, it made me realise the importance of how important the onboarding is, mapping out the journey for them, where are they currently at? Because I'd be coming in, right, go and do a barbell back squat. Like, I had no idea that their mobility issues.
What do you mean you can't do that?
Yeah, movement screen and stuff. And I genuinely thought, it took me about 6 years to realise, they're lazy. They're not going all the way down. Like, you're a mess.
Yeah.
Like, sort it out. And I was like, why are they not squatting deep? And it used to irritate me. But now, obviously, I know. But again, you never get taught that, to how to run a business, how to take payment and stuff like that. Because I was doing, the amount of times this is one of my biggest PT icks as well. Obviously, we take some cash and stuff like that. And I used to take payment on the day. And 5 minutes before their session, they would cancel. And oh my God, so I'd have my whole week and I was really bad. It'd be like, it's all right, we'll rearrange the session and stuff like that. So I'd have like X amount I was going to be expecting for the week, and I'd end up with half of it because I opened that door. And that was just so frustrating, cancellations. But it was down to me then. But again, you don't get taught that side of cancellation, T's and C's, onboarding, consultation. It was just, okay, I charge £30 an hour and this is your program. Because that's all we got taught in that 6-week course. And it was so basic. But they just taught you enough to get you insured. They didn't care. They were making $3,000 off me and everyone else in that classroom, of course. And like I touched on with that woman who failed her exam 3 times, she was then qualified. It's absolutely abysmal, in my opinion.
I think the best skill you can have as a PT is the ability to meet people where they're at. You give them too much information, you can have problems where they're overwhelmed that could lead to inaction and inertia. You don't give them enough, they maybe think, oh, well, we're quite harsh, but what am I paying you for? I could do this myself. So you've got to kind of show them the way, and that's a skill because sometimes it's not obvious where people are at. Sometimes people are quite guarded. It takes some time to reveal that. But the faster and better you could do that, in my opinion, kind of makes you the better coach, because then you can shorten their trajectory, their success curve to results faster. And that's what everyone wants. But no one teaches you kind of how to do that. And that in some ways is more advanced coaching. And as I've got a bit more experience, I like to think I've realised more of the importance of that, so I've spent time and effort more trying to cultivate that. Because things in the nuts and bolts world of what we eat, what the best protocol for this is, how we exercise, we're only scratching the surface of what we know really, as the things are coming out all the time with research and that kind of thing. I mean, we know fundamental things, but that changes a lot. So if you're not passionate about that, to stay on top of that side of things, you can almost get left behind a little bit as well, I think, which is something that's worth noting.
Yeah, and I think it's comparison as well. I feel like when I first started, there was 2 PTs in particular that were brim to the diary, fast starters and stuff like that, and it actually took me a year to get my first PT client, and I was so anxious, overwhelmed.
God, you late bloomer, you.
Literally, I was like I had so much anxiety because I'd never had the onboarding thing. I'd be like, I'll go to them, and I used to tell people I wanted a PT, and it was only when I got thrown in. So there was this spinning instructor was called in sick, and I had a spinning qualification. I swear to God, I was downstairs. I thought I was going to have a panic attack, like white as a ghost, like being sick. And I had to do a class of 30 people. And I'm so glad it happened, because after that moment, I got so much good feedback. And I was like, oh my God, I can do it. But like I said, I was 19. I was quite skinny back then. I know you wouldn't think I'm now because I'm absolutely jacked. But I was so overwhelmed with people feel there was other people better than me. And I was like bottom of the food chain. I'm like, why would you want to come to me? What do I have? And it took me a long time with that like imposter syndrome and stuff to realise that I'm unique, I've got my own sort of way of things, and like believe in myself as a person. So I feel like for anyone that is listening with like the comparison side of things, I think we're going to go into that in a different topic as well, but it's back yourself massively, and that's something that took me a long time to realise. And you have to constantly learn, like constantly use your brain. I think we live in a world where I didn't even mean to say that. I see what you mean. Damn it! Where
For people that are listening to this as the first episode, James always says we live in a world where...
Damn it! That is. We're very comfortable with our situation, and we don't want to push ourselves in. You get better by being uncomfortable, and I think the fitness industry especially, you have to learn, you have to constantly put yourself out there. There's always something you can be better at, and never stop grinding.
But if you've got that growth mindset, in some ways, that is enough, I think, because it's easier to think, it's easy, like you say, to think imposter syndrome, like, oh, I'm not going to be good enough for X. But you almost want to flip it and be like, well, if I've got this feeling that and this motivation to be curious, to grow, to work on my weaknesses, to expand myself, then that's enough. The fact that I've got that, I can, I don't have to have all the answers now. I can get I can learn on the job a bit. Do you see what I mean? Like, rather than, because otherwise you can almost be, I think people can stop taking action for anything because they just feel like that's out of my reach, and then they won't even start towards it. Just a quick one on the spin class. Well, I remember my first spin class, I was absolutely panic attack territory as well. I don't really know why, but and I remember I had my playlist that I'd done from about 4 days before, because I was like, I'm going to mess the music up. And I had it out, had some absolute banging tracks. And then I had it on my iPhone, and my mum kept ringing me, and I was just like, "Mum, you're joking!" Like, I can't think of it. God bless her. Like, I can't think of an emergency that's this important. It's like, just not now. Like, and it's kept cutting in and the thing, and she's rang me about 4 times, and turns out it was actually quite serious in the end. But at the time, I didn't care. I was just like, I got to get through this. Like 30 minutes.
There's been instructor. So I've got an interesting question with you to close in. Do you think the PT courses now need to have a bit of guidance on social media with how prominent it is in regards to business growth, getting yourself out there? What would you say to that?
I think the answer is they probably should, because that would be incredibly useful to the PTs. But there are lots of other people that offer that as a service, which is a good niche to be in, because there are lots of PTs qualifying at the rates of knots with not much of a business springboard, so therefore they can get that elsewhere. But I think that would be a good addition to it, because I get why the bodies would say, look, we can't do everything. We can't teach you how to manage your money, be a business person, be a marketer, sell yourself, close sales, that kind of thing. That's other things, but they need to offer a bit more of a life after. They could probably do more of an aftercare thing, or they'd be better off charging more up front and then following up later than just like leave the nest, off you go.
Even if it was touch points, mate, I think that don't really need to delve into the nuts and bolts of it, but be like, this is what we'd recommend you do, or this is what other PTs and stuff. Even because, God, I was out the door, never heard from them since. Like, that was it. It was, okay, you're done now, off you go.
Or start a community or something, like they bring it, like have a networking group of everyone that did the course, encourage them to stay together and share best practices about what was working in the same boat, rather than just like people go off in different directions all across the country. That's an interesting one. I think, we'll talk more about training in future episodes. But thanks very much for listening, guys. Really appreciate all your support with the episode so far, and we'll see you next week.